Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Cardboard Memories, Clearview, Long Island, the law firm of Decolator, Cohen, and DePrisco, the Phoenix Tube Company, PIMS Incorporated, fueling brand performance for 30 years, Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, and Soho Table Hockey. Here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good Sunday evening to you, Mark Roseman. AJ Carter with you this Sunday evening. 39 seconds left in the Cincinnati Bengals Kansas City Chiefs game. I shouldn't say 39 seconds because that 39 seconds could easily turn
I have to tell you, Mark, this game's heading to overtime. I can bet that I think Buckner's about to kick a field goal, and we're going to see another overtime game, and we'll see what happens. And once again, it'll all boil down maybe to a coin flip. It
is unbelievable the way this, these playoffs have gone. After the first horrible weekend, the last two weekends, at least this start, has been unbelievable, and a lot of football yet to be played. So we'll see what's going on. But right now, it's time for the Major League Baseball Report with John Carpenter. It's sponsored by Cardboard Memories, which is one of Long Island's most reputable memorabilia retail stores for over 29 years. The owner of Cardboard Memories, Scott Stamell, is known for his knowledge and savvy of authentic autographs. He's been featured on HBO Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. Cardboard Memories possesses the honesty, integrity one would want and need from a memorabilia source. Cardboard Memories is always buying collections large and small. Let Cardboard Memories run your next charity fundraising auction. Call them to find out how they can help your organization at no cost at all. Cardboard Memories is located at 6401 Jericho Turnpike, Comac, New York. Visit them on the web at cardboardmemories.com or follow them on Facebook or Instagram. All right, John, so we had some back-to-back meetings with the owners and the Players Association. What do you make of it? Do you see progress? Some of the major stumbling blocks they've kind of agreed to. What's your take on this week's talks?
I have two takes. Number one is I'm surprised that the Players Association kind of gave on the free agency after 5 years, that they took that off the table. I thought that was a major issue for them, but it seems to have gone away quicker than I expected. And number two, I'm surprised at the conflicting messages that we're getting from these talks. I mean, on the one hand, like you said, a lot of major stumbling blocks have gone away, or more than I thought that would be through this amount of time. But then you hear some saber rattling from the owner's side saying, "Oh, we're not afraid to lose games. We're not afraid to have games canceled." So it's like there's really no clear message from these or direction that I'm hearing from these talks.
I think, John, you have to look at what they're saying publicly or getting out for public consumption, what's really happening behind the scenes. There's got to be a lot of saber rattling on both sides. But the fact that both sides have actually shown some movement is optimistic to me. As I said last week, when they go to the mattresses, when they start meeting, stop the clock, meeting through the night, I think they can hammer a deal out probably in a day or two. And, let's see what happens this week if they reach that point. Right now they still have to maintain their a little bit of their posturing and positioning. And that's what all is right now. I think it's just posturing. I think we'll see what happens for the rest of the week.
The posturing and the progress at the same time is confusing. That's what's throwing me off.
Yeah, I think the owners need to, kind of step back on their messaging a little bit and just let this play out, because I think the owners are going to start getting some bad will against them. But, the bottom line is once everything is settled and baseball starts, everyone has short memories because we just want the game back. One of the things that happened this past week, Hall of Fame election, again, only one, and it was David Ortiz. What are your thoughts on that?
Well-deserved, one of the best clutch players in baseball history for sure. The amazing thing that I heard was there was a tweet thread by Brian Bannister, coach with the Red Sox, whose first season with them was 2016, and it was David Ortiz's final season. And he would say, as a designated hitter, that last season he spent a lot of time on the phone with his friends during games. And there was one time where he was on the phone and he said, "Hold on, I got to go hit," and never hung up on whoever it was. Went out, hit a home run, circled the bases, celebrated, came back into the locker room, picked up the okay, where were we? That's just an amazing story if you get a chance to read it.
I think the other message that came out of it is if you look at the results, you look at what can happen next year, is the writers losing some of their power. I think a lot of the prevailing wisdom is, even though this is the last year on the writers' ballot, for both Bonds and for Clemens, that they could get into the hall as early as next year. But what's the name of the Players Committee, that relooks at this? So the question you have is, how meaningful is it for the writers who are making statements, well, I won't vote for this guy because of real or suspected PED use, versus what happened. And Ortiz, turned around right after he got the notice, the word he was elected, saying, well, I think these guys belong in the Hall of Fame. Bonds was a better player than me. I think we have to look at what happens in the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're also, in terms of years and future years after that, I think there's going to be a shift in the demographics of the writers that are in the BBWAA. Bonds and Clemens got 86% of the Hall of Fame vote just from the writers who have joined recently in the past 3 to 5 years. You have to check me on that, but 86% of the newer writers. There's definitely going to be a shift, and you're going to see a shift in how players are voted on in the next few years.
Totally agree, and it's going to be interesting. Also, lastly, real quick, Carlos Beltran has a job here in New York. What do you think, John, him at the Yes Network?
Good for him to be back in the game. I thought that he should have. He's been punished far too long. When you look at AJ Hinch and Joey Cora getting jobs very quickly, and Beltran being kind of still exiled a little bit, it's good for him to be back in the game. I think this is going to lead to an on-field job very quickly.
You got it, John Coppinger, heard here each and every week with the Cardboard Memories Major League Baseball report. We just saw a kicker tie up the game with a field goal, and so we're going to speak to a place kicker who also played an amazing game. Rolf Benirschke joins us right after this message.
Do you own a business? When is the last time you actually had a visit from or even spoke with your insurance representative? Did your current insurance agency sell to another firm or maybe merge, leaving you without the attention you deserve? Prince Associates is a provider of commercial insurance nationwide and represents some of the finest insurance carriers in the industry. Prince Associates has been representing commercial clients since 1965, and we continue to grow and offer our personal services in a competitive and ever-changing market. If you want back the insurance relationship you deserve, reach out to us, 516-822-6550. That's area code 516-822-6550. And ask for Leith or Craig, or find us on the web at www.princeins.com.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York this Sunday night. Mark Roseman, AJ Carter with you. Hopefully you're watching the game on mute and listening to us, because joining us now is a man who was a place kicker in the National Football League. He played for the San Diego Chargers from 1977 until 1986. He was a second-team All-Pro in 1980. He won the George S. Hallis Courage Award in 1981, made the Pro Bowl in 1982, was the NFL's Man of the Year in 1983, and is a member of the Chargers Hall of Fame. He played a key role in the epic in Miami, the National Football League AFC divisional playoff between the San Diego Chargers and Miami Dolphins that took place on January 2nd, 1982 in the Miami Orange Bowl, as his 29-yard field goal gave the Chargers a 41-38 win after 13 minutes and 52 seconds of overtime play. It is a pleasure to welcome Rolf Benirschke to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Rolf. How you doing?
Hey, Mark. Nice of you to have me on. The timing's awkward, isn't it, at the end of the game here? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Right when we went to break was right when Kansas City hit the field goal. So I think it's almost perfect timing because, up until last week, I actually thought that game was maybe the greatest playoff game ever. And before we talk about that game, let's talk a little bit about your career. You grow up in San Diego. You attend La Jolla High School, where you played multiple sports, soccer, wrestling. You're a member of the ski club as well as football. Your classmates seem to have your career path correct, as you're voted most athletic as well as best looking. What are some of the life lessons you took from playing two big soccer tournaments, the PSA and the United States National Tournament, and then from your football coaches, Gene Edwards and Bald Trometter?
Well, a few things. First, Mark, I was actually raised on the East Coast, and my father moved us out here from Dartmouth. He was a medical school professor. I was raised back in New England until I was 15. And one day he announced, without asking us three kids, telling us we're moving to San Diego, he was recruited to help start the medical school out here. So as I was going into 10th grade, we ended up in La Jolla, and all the sports that I had grown up doing, we didn't do it. There's no hockey team. There was no ski team. There was no soccer team. The tennis team was the best in the nation. I hadn't grown yet. So I was frustrated to know what to do. We ended up starting a soccer team my junior year in high school. But out here in California, this is how life works. Out here in California, soccer is played in the winter, not in the fall, like on the East Coast. And so I got talked into playing football my senior year. And only because of that did I end up, that was a huge, life correction change for me. I ended up, we didn't have a very good team. Kicking was not hard at all. If you can kick a soccer ball while you kick football. And I got recruited to play at a bunch of different schools, UCLA and USC and Cal and Stanford and San Diego State. And so I went to my dad and say, look, they want to pay my way scholarship to go to Stanford. What do you think? And he looked at me like I had three eyes. He goes, "Are you kidding me? That's not why you go to college. You go there to study." And so I go, "Yeah, you're probably right. I don't know if I'm any good anyway." So I ended up going to UC Davis because they had a zoology degree. And so I was passionate about wildlife and saw myself as a field biologist and ended up going there. Didn't know if they had a team, didn't sign up for it until a week into my freshman year. I get a call from the head coach who basically says, "Look, I know you were recruited to go everywhere. How come you're not playing football?" And I said, "Well, I'm worried about my studies." And he said, "Well, why don't you play?" And he talked me into playing, and he changed my life dramatically. The lessons, I learned, you asked the question, lessons I learned. One is you just never know what's going to change your life. I think that's true in a lot of people, how you got into sports broadcasting. Everybody has their own little story about maybe a redirective person or point experience. And that's what it was for me. And then it was recognizing very quickly, even though I went to UC Davis, which was Division II non-scholarship school, that I could actually play with these guys in the NFL once I got there.
You mentioned about UC Davis, and you were a two-sport athlete there, but it's also interesting because sometimes you played those two sports on the same day. You would run to catch a plane after a soccer game in Hayward to get to Chico in time for football games. I have to imagine as a college student, that's kind of nerve-wracking. What was that like?
Well, again, had I gone to USC or Stanford, I'm sure they wouldn't have done that. But so the story behind that is I played my freshman year and had a fun time, but in the meantime played lots of intramural soccer, and we had a dorm team and a co-ed team, and pretty soon I realized I'm playing with all the guys on the varsity, and they're great guys, and I realized I can hang with them playing soccer, and so they talked me into it. But in college, soccer and football are both in the fall, so now I'd have to make a choice. So I actually chose soccer. I went to the football coach, said, "Look, you got another kicker. I'm going to go play soccer." And he could have said, "Go ahead," but he didn't. He said, "Well, let me talk to the soccer coach." And they worked it out where I could actually play both sports in the same season, and did that for the next 3 years, and had an amazing experience all the way around, and probably kept sports in the proper perspective. It's a neat thing to do, but it wasn't going to be my whole life. And then all of a sudden it was my life. It was kind of a crazy transition.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the way your dad looked at you. Your agent was Lee Steinberg, the super agent who's often credited as the real life inspiration for Cameron Crowe's film Jerry Maguire in 1996. He tells an interesting story when talking about meeting your parents. And I think the line was from your mom, who said she thought that you would be better off conducting experiments on a pig bladder rather than kicking one. What were those conversations like with your parents? And when you get picked with the second to last pick in the draft by the Raiders about the choice to play professional football?
You're bringing up a lot of funny stories. So yes, I was a client of Lee's. I was his third client. I was nobody. He got started because Steve Bartkowski had been drafted in the first round, and he happened to be the RA on the dorm when Steve was a senior. Steve needed an agent. Lee was the guy that stepped in, negotiates the richest contract and starts Lee's career. The only reason I got with Lee was brand new in this all, but our coach at Davis knew the coach at Cal, and I got introduced when it was clear something was going to happen with me. And as you mentioned, I was, the last player taken, or second to last player taken, and got connected with Lee. And Lee was an idealist. He recognized that as athletes, we had a platform and we could redirect the attention placed on us to something that was important to us. But when I got drafted, my dad was, shocked. They're going to pay you to kick a football. When are you going to get a real job and make a difference? And he was an immigrant. We didn't grow up with a television. This was all new to him. And so it was a learning experience for all of us, for sure.
That Raider camp had some pretty tough competition. You had the man who succeeded George Blanda, Fred Stanford, and the veteran Earl Mallon. What did you learn from them and your time with the Raiders in that first camp?
That's a great question. So there were three of us kickers, two veterans, and I was the young kid that was drafted. Fred Steinford had injured his leg the year before. They had brought in Errol Mann to finish off. They won the Super Bowl that year. That was the John Madden Super Bowl. So I'm there, and the story was that Madden didn't like rookies, and he hated kickers. So I was a rookie kicker, like I was as low as it could be, and I actually didn't like John Madden because he would. So back then it was 6 preseason games, so 9 weeks of training camp, double sessions. It's 100 degrees, really a challenge. And it wasn't so much for me, but for the lineman. And here's what happened. So at the end of every practice in the morning, the first practice, he would yell, "Kicker, you got 1 shot, 45 yards. If you make it, everybody goes in and showers. If you miss it, everybody runs 1,000-100-yard sprints." And you can imagine Gene Upshaw and Art Shell and Dave Castor and all these guys did not want to run 100-yard sprints at the end of a morning practice, knowing there's another practice of 100 degrees coming here in a couple hours. So he did that every day. It was relentless, and I hated him for it. I mean, I knew what he was trying to do, but I still hated him for it. And, ultimately it had a lot to do with, I guess, me staying alive. Some people ask, "Did you make it?" I said, the only reason I'm alive is I made it, because those guys wouldn't have liked it if I missed it. But it was great training, and he was actually really a special influence on my life, as was that whole experience up there.
So you're waived and you get picked up by the Chargers, where you have a great rookie season, hitting 17 of 23 field goal attempts, finishing with the best percentage kicker in the NFL, hitting on your last 12 in a row to set a Charger record, just 4 of the NFL record at that time. But you start having your health issues in the offseason before the 78 season, developing chronic fever, abdominal cramps, which led to the diagnosis of ulcerative colitis, a form of inflammatory bowel disease. Your health problems get worse in the 79 season when, on the team plane coming home from a road trip, you collapse. You then had to undergo 2 surgeries to move your large intestine. You're in the intensive care unit for weeks. When you're released from the hospital, you weighed only 123 pounds. How scary of a time was that in your life, and what were some of the thoughts going through your head?
Well, it was a horrible time. Anybody that's had Crohn's disease or colitis can relate to it. Back then, we did not have good medicine to treat the disease. We still have a lot to learn there. But I was a kicker, and so for all intents and purposes, that first season when I played sick, I had a bad stomach ache and bloody diarrhea, and kind of kept my head down and kept playing, and knowing what the teammates are going through. And you're either the starting kicker or you're unemployed. And so I continued to play and play and play. And unfortunately, kicking is more technique than strength. And so I could finish the season. But the last month of the season, I was literally playing the game on Sunday. They would take me to the hospital Sunday night to get a central IV in my neck, get fed with TPN all week, released Saturday to go be with my teammates, night at the hotel, play the game on Sunday, then back in the hospital. So for a month, I didn't really eat. It was trying to keep me, energy through the TPN, and finish the season. Tried to start my 3rd season, 1979, and 4 games into it, collapsed on the team plane. Needed surgeries or complications in surgery. I had a second one, 7 days later, and then woke up wearing 2 ostomy bags. As you mentioned, 65 pounds below my playing weight, looking around going, "My gosh, why did I live?" From where I sit, there's nothing worth living for. Never thought I would play again. Wondered what my life would be like. I was 2 months in the hospital. And then ultimately, with my colon out, I started to recover. And the crazy story, Mark, is I was given a chance to play the next year. I got my strength back. Never thought I would play. I had to wear a little protective device around my abdomen to protect my stomas, but played 7 more seasons, and 4 of those with ostomies, and without intending to, I had a chance to talk about inflammatory bowel disease to a country that didn't really talk about it back then. There are 3 million people with IBD. There are over 100,000 ostomy surgeries done a year, and difficult thing to talk about. Very hard for me. I was 24, and I was single, and I like girls, and I'm wondering what kind of life I could have. But the truth is, I could return and played all the other sports. I was a skier, played hockey, was a scuba diver, loved the beach, could do all those things, and I returned to play football, which is crazy. And I'm now married with 4 kids, so I feel like it was life changing, and then it was life changing in other ways. It redirected my life into healthcare. I became very involved in patient advocacy. I started my own healthcare company. And everything, all of those experiences had a huge impact on what I do today. I was 40 years post game that Miami game you're talking about. So a lot of water under the bridge, but feel very, very blessed, honestly.
Yeah, and so many things came out after that. When you make that first comeback, you walk out onto the field as an honorary captain in November 18th, 1979 against the Steelers. Standing ovation at the coin flip. At that point, what's the thing that's going through your head? Did you think at that point that you were going to make it back to the NFL? And how much motivation was it that day, being among your teammates?
Mark, it's a great question. So I was 2 weeks out of the hospital. I'd been in the hospital 2 months. I get out, and about 10 days later, the Chargers call and ask if I would like to come to the game and watch the game. I can hardly walk. I'd not been out of the, hardly been out of the house. And so I went to the game, and then my teammates, heard that I was there, and they asked me to come down to the locker room. And the next thing I know, they're making me honorary captain for the day. And I'm going, I'm not sure I can walk that far out to the coin toss or not. But literally walking out there, we were playing the Steelers, as you mentioned, and me and Joe Green and Jack Hammond, these guys that are such, icons. I remember getting in the middle of the field, the place, people are standing, and I'm getting this ovation. I'm on the field weeping. I'm so grateful for the fans that donated blood to save my life. The fact that they're encouraging me there, I'm just weeping when I get to the middle of the field. And Joe Green was just so kind to me. He says, the fans must really love you. I didn't know what to say. I'm sitting there going, they love this team. I happen to be the player that got sick. But I never thought I'd play again. As I walked off, I'm thinking, this is the last time I'm ever on this field. But as I recovered, it was literally, I couldn't curl 5 pounds. That day became a huge motivation for me. And then it was a question as, would the ostomy bag stay on? Would I be allowed to play again? And, I had a great coach, Coach Coryell. And our owner back then was Gene Klein. And I remember I called a meeting with him. I said, look, I'd like to know, would you just allow me to compete for my job? Not with any special dispensation, just allow me to compete. And they could have said, Rolf, it's been great. City loves you. Everything's good. But, there are 100 kickers in line. None of them wear ostomy bags. But they didn't. Gene Klein said, well, if you can protect yourself, prove to the medical staff, go talk to Coryell. Yeah, I'd love to have you try out again. And so that's what happened. And I got to try out again and then earned my job back. And I'll just be forever grateful for those men for allowing me to do that.
So over and above the physical toll that it took to get you back to the NFL, what were some of the mental hurdles that you had to overcome while you were training, not to give up and to continue and persevere?
Well, football can be a brutal game. It's you got to win, you have to produce. And so I didn't want anything special. I just wanted to, the team needed a kicker. I wanted to be the guy if I could earn that spot. And then given the chance to do that, I learned a lot from books I had read. One book particularly written by a POW who survived 6 years in the POW camps in Vietnam, talked about you get an opportunity in times like that to discover this indomitable spirit that I believe God's gifted every one of us, that you get to uncover these sort of latent, sort of covered up abilities you have but don't know them. So you recognize that you have more courage, you have a greater ability to persevere, you can cope more, you're more creative, you can dig deeper than you ever thought you could, and you get a chance to discover that. Now in the process, I've learned you always have a choice. You can stay bitter, and I had a lot of reasons, and I stayed there for a while. This wasn't fair. I was 23 and 24. My career was just taking off. The team was just getting good. I'm playing in my hometown. This just isn't fair. Why is this happening? Why? And I got stuck there, like a lot of people get stuck there. But it was people and this book and others that encouraged me to say, all right, you choose to stay bitter, or you can choose to get better. And in the process of making the choice to get better, you discover all of these other attributes that you have, and you realize there are people willing to help. And in my case, our owner gave me a chance to try out. Coach encouraged me. Teammates were unbelievable to me. We had a big gathering last night of old teammates, and the stories we go back and tell it, the unique bonds that get developed in a locker room, and particularly when somebody goes through something difficult and gets encouraged on the way back by your teammates is something you never forget. So those lessons, I think, when you learn them young, you live them out the rest of your life. No life is guaranteed 85 or 90 years. In my case, it really should have been 24 years. I was septic after my second surgery. I should have died in the same hospital my dad was working, and I didn't. And I could have. And so you live life with appreciation for family and friends and the opportunity to do things. There's a gratefulness that just pervades everything.
We alluded in the open about that game. You are a central figure until this past weekend's Kansas City Buffalo game, what I thought was the greatest playoff game ever, the Epic in Miami, National Football League, AFC divisional playoff game against the San Diego Chargers and the Miami Dolphins. Take us through what your memories of that game was and everything that was unfolding and what you're thinking as the kicker.
Yeah, so it really did become this amazing game, and so many people saw it. I mean, I still run into people today who remember it just as you do, partly because there was a big storm and most of the Northeast and Midwest was covered in snow and people were kept inside and they watched this amazing game. But the game started out where we were ahead 24-0 at the end of the first quarter. And we're all just, we're thrilled. We're getting another game check. If you think about back then, we didn't make much money at all. So the fact that you're going to go on to a divisional championship game was really a big deal. And then all of a sudden, Don Shula changes quarterbacks and takes out David Woodley, a young quarterback, and puts in Don Strock, a veteran. And they mount this comeback. We're playing in Miami in the Orange Bowl. And just before halftime, they throw up what's become this famous hook and ladder play. And they score a touchdown. And now we're up by only a touchdown, but momentum is completely on their side. If you were standing next to me, 5 feet apart, you couldn't hear, 2 feet apart, you couldn't hear me if I yelled at you. The stadium was so loud. So we get to the locker room and everybody sort of got their head down. The coaches are sitting in the corner. They don't know what to say. People are just like, what just happened? The last guy in was Dan Fouts, our quarterback. And Dan Fouts sees us all, head down, moping around, and he takes his helmet and he throws it the length of the locker room, almost hits one of our star receivers, Wes Chandler. And he starts yelling at us, but words I can't say on the radio. Get your heads out of your butt. They haven't stopped us yet. They're not going to stop. We're going to win this game. And he literally woke us up and made us realize, all right, yeah, we're ahead barely, but the second half is this back and forth, and they go ahead and we tie it. We tie it with about 30 seconds to go. We don't tie it until I make the extra point. And I remember walking out there going, you can't miss this. The field's all chewed up back then. It was a horrible place to kick. And we make the kick. It was really one of the most pressure kicks that I kicked, even in that game, interestingly. But it left them 30 seconds. And they marched down the field and they had a chance to win it with a long field goal. And Kellen Winslow was inserted, our tight end, who's a big 6'7" tight end, blocks the kick, and it goes into overtime. And now, back then it was like it is now. It's a quarter long. We started, and now, but it's like 95 degrees. People are sweating, hauled off the field. Kellen Winslow was dragged off 6 or 7 times. IVs. I mean, people are just spent. By the end of that game, they were close to 1,000 yards in offense. I mean, it was a highlight reel of great plays. Yeah. But in overtime, we marched down the field quickly. There's a long pass, and they call for field goal on it was second or third down. I want to say second down, and our guys weren't ready. They were on the side getting oxygen there, and so they call for field goal. We go running out there, but we're missing 3 guys, and so it's like a fire drill. Where's it? Come on, get out here! And the clock's running down, and I'm going to the holder, who is a guy named Ed Luther. Ed, we got to call timeout. He goes, no, it's short one. We'll kick it. It was like 32 yards. So we rushed the kick, and I missed the kick. And I remember Mark walking on the sidelines going, oh my gosh, I let this team down. And then we had to watch in agonizing slow motion as Miami marched down the field. And their kicker had a chance to kick a game winner, and didn't. He kicked the ground first, kicked it into the line, and all of a sudden we get a reprieve and we get a second chance and march down the field. And and I get a second chance to kick the game winner, which never happens in overtime. And I remember sitting on the plane flying home after this sort of amazing game and reflecting. It was sort of like my life. I shouldn't have lived. I got a second chance to live. I should never have been able to play again. I got a second chance to play. And here in overtime, a kicker just doesn't ever get a second chance. And I got a second chance to win it. And it goes down in one of the great games of all time. And it's just sort of metaphoric to my life. I'm just extraordinarily grateful for that.
So you mentioned you missing the field goal. It was a hurried snap, and the field, the guy didn't get it down, and it was hurried. And then you watch, like you mentioned, them march down the field. Louis von Schaman misses, and you get that second chance. As you're going out there, mentally, does self-doubt start to creep in, knowing that, the last one was rushed, you missed it. Now you do have that second chance, but how do you block out those negative thoughts at that particular moment?
Yeah, well, first of all, the first one I take full responsibility for. I should have made it. There's just no way. It was everything was. I take full. Going out there the second time, I was so excited to get a second chance. I mean, I couldn't wait to get out there. They called it again on third down. They just want to get the game over with. I knew Coach had confidence in me. I was actually really confident, and I really kicked it well. And it's a good thing if you ever look at the slow motion replay that the outside wing guy doesn't get blocked, and he lays out, and he's pounding the ground afterwards. He should have blocked it, could have blocked it, but I got it up quickly, and nobody ever knows that unless you look at the film closely. So I got to tell you, going out there, I was so excited, confident that at this time it was gonna work, but very grateful too. I watch these kickers out here now. We've watched some amazing kickers in the playoffs, and you referenced the game last week. Honestly, the greatest game I've ever seen. It was absolutely unbelievable, and the kickers are so good now and make it look so easy. That's the only thing discouraging me. It's not that easy, guys. It's just not in the snow and not with that kind of pressure, and it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, it's been great 2 weeks of football for sure after the first week, which is kind of a disappointment. But this past year, there was such a big deal made about Aaron Rodgers hosting Jeopardy. But you're way ahead of the curve on this one as you replaced pretty much a game show legend in Pat Sajak as the host of Wheel of Fortune. How did that come about, and what was that experience like?
Well, you're going deep. So when I left football, I got involved in healthcare, and as I mentioned, I started to speak a lot on behalf of patients with Crohn's disease. I was actually on a 5-city media tour talking about the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation and the importance of the research we're doing and all that, and was on a show in LA. And Merv Griffin saw the show. There's a story I'll tell you the quick story. So they say in television, never follow children or animals. So we were the third set to go on, and the first was these precocious kids who were singing Les Miserables in LA, these cute little 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids who were just adorable. So they finished. I went, oh my goodness. The next one is a guy who has what he's calling the pet of the 90s. He's got 25 different rabbits all over the stage. And pretty soon they're, 25 rabbits. And pretty soon they start humping each other like rabbits do, and then the camera's zooming in, and finally the host realized he's lost total control, and he says, "We'll be right back in a minute with Rolf Benirschke's life-threatening story of Crohn's disease." And so we come on next, and of course we have to have some fun with that. And Merv Griffin sees the show and is actually building another show. Asked me to come out and try that. I'm thinking this is interesting, be curious. So I go do that. In the middle of that, Pat Sajak gets a nighttime talk show host opportunity. He always wanted to be, a Johnny Carson. That was when Johnny Carson was retiring. So he does that. But back then, I'm giving you more information. Back then, there was a daytime version of the Wheel of Fortune and a nighttime version, a syndicated version. But the daytime version was on NBC. He was moving this to CBS's talk show, so they wouldn't let him do both. So he had to step down from that. They needed to replace him. I didn't realize any of this. There was this big national surge. People are sending tapes, and I have no idea. Anyway, the short story is he invites me up to the show to meet Vanna, to do a little of that and go back and forth. And The next thing I know, I came back from New York. I had given a talk. I was this Sunday night, went to listen to my messages on my answer machine. Back then we had answer machines, you remember? And there was a message. This was Sunday night. It says, "You've been selected the next host. You start on Thursday." I go, what? So that's how it started. And was never a goal of mine. It was interesting. I did it for a year season. And then they ended up changing that and they sold it to another network, and it did it another year. And then they stopped the daytime version and they did just the syndicated nighttime version. But it's a brief glimpse into Hollywood that was interesting, and totally out of nowhere.
Awesome. Rolf, thanks so much for your time tonight. Where can people that are listening now catch up with you on social media and everything that you're up to these days?
Yeah, I'm not really on social media much. I've got a healthcare company, Legacy Health Strategies. I've got a website, rolfbenirschke.com. You can always do that. Anyway, yeah. So that'd probably be the best way, rolfbenirschke.com. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And especially this last 2 weeks has been the weekends of the kickers, and who better to speak to than one of the greatest games ever played in football as well. So thanks so much. We really appreciate it.
You're kind. Thanks, Mark. Enjoy the rest.
You got it. Rolf Benirschke, 1983 NFL Man of the Year. We'll be back with Russ Cohn and the NHL Report next.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York this Sunday night. Thrilling football game. The team I thought was going to win the Super Bowl is already out of it. Kansas City is out. Bengals are in, and now the other game will be starting shortly. But it's time now for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn, sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say?
What's table hockey?
There you go. Some of us might have grown up with rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey is embracing the nostalgia of those old tabletop games and designed a whole new board for the future, handcrafted with designer woods, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, and energy-absorbing walls. This is a tabletop hockey game that players age 8 to 80 can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows the game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit SohoTableHockey.com to learn more. Start your order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, a starter, a center ice logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. All right, Russ, I know you were out at Henrik Lundqvist's retirement jersey night, and while watching that ceremony, one of the things that really dawned on me was when you put this in comparison with the Vic Hadfield night. Granted, different generations. I don't think teams should wait so long to retire jerseys. I think that might have been what made this so special, that there were guys on the current Rangers that played with him that had emotions. 90% of the Garden probably, was very well invested in Henrik Lundqvist. It wasn't like you're bringing their sons, although some might have been. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Maybe a 6-year-old, started when Henrik was there. But what would you say to, if a guy is a player that's worthy of retiring his jersey, why do we wait so long?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think you're right. I mean, if he deserves it, do it right away. I mean, except the Rangers do have an issue. Like, there are guys like Frank Boucher and Bill Cook that for some reason never got it. And they almost need to have a night for all of those guys. and give them their banners, and because they help build this franchise. But otherwise, you're right. I think the immediacy of it added to it. I mean, it made it more special. It definitely was more recent. So, like, yes, young people really had a great idea of who these folks were, and everybody involved. Like, Zuccarello's still playing. Like, there were players still playing. Like you said, Cam Talbot's still playing. But there was one thing, like, and we don't know why. We knew the other retired numbers couldn't get there, probably because of age, and that's fine. I mean, that's hard in the winter. If you did it maybe in in April, they could maybe do it. But there weren't a lot of teammates. There weren't, a lot of the guys that, like Marty St. Louis. Why wasn't he there? Like, did they invite those guys, or did they kind of just keep it small? It seemed like they kept it small in that regard, but the ceremony itself was fantastic.
Right, and it's interesting because you mentioned some of the former teammates like Ryan Callahan and Girardi were there, but they were up in the box and they weren't part of the on-ice ceremony.
No.
The only one thing I will have to say is, I don't know who was in charge of the team present, but is Henrik going on the Titanic? Like, who uses a steamer truck? Like what? That I just did not get.
No, I thought about it. I thought maybe if he was like doing a magic act, because Henrik can do anything, right? He can play guitar. Maybe he's getting into magic. I don't know.
You think about back in baseball, they used to give players a day, and they give them stuff, and they give them like a car. They collect money. Yeah. Some players earning $5,000 a year. What can you give any athlete in any sport? These days as a memento. A memento is not something they really need because they're making more money than everybody who's sitting in the stands.
Well, I think the pucks thing was great.
That's beautiful. Right.
I think that's what you could do. Like Richter is a perfect example of what you can't do anything with. They had given him that silver net with everybody's autographs on it, and that thing's in the training center because Richter's like, I can't do anything with this.
Right. And the bottom line is, what is something that Henrik Lundqvist would want that he can't go out and buy himself? I get it.
Right.
But,
but the trip is a nice idea. That's always good. The family appreciates it. That's a nice thing.
Yeah, and when you juxtapose it, when we all watched, because of after Rod Gilbert passed away, they replayed the Rod Gilbert, and some of the things there were really just brutal. But before we let you go, I think we have to say this. Listen, Gerard Gallant is definitely going to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year. Unless the Rangers continue their right now, what I would say is, uninspired play. Really haven't played well of late, but yet they continue to get points. But, Mike Sullivan, I think he might be one of the underrated coaches of our time. You take a look, when we say the Rangers in the beginning of the season have been doing it with mirrors, you take a look at that Pittsburgh Penguin roster, and they really shouldn't be where they are now. What is it about Mike Sullivan and that team that just seems year after year, no matter who leaves, no matter, what the circumstances are, that team always competes. And it's not only just because they have Sid and Malkin and Letang. I mean, there are other reasons. What is it?
Yeah, Sullivan was in trouble 2 years ago, but luckily when I go to the Fall Classic, it's at the rink, the Lemieux Center there where the Penguins have their camp. So every day I was eating lunch, I was watching their camp. And then, shortly after that tournament ended, I was making my picks, and I picked the Penguins to make the playoffs. And people looked at me like, really? And I'm like, listen, I watch these guys in camp every day. This was the hardest working camp I had seen compared to other teams I've watched. The speed, everything they worked on. There was no Crosby in camp. There was no Malkin in camp. And I just saw hungry guys that were doing everything they could to get better for the season, and instead of just kind of like warming up for the season. So they really reinvented this team. And it was the lower ranking guys that did it. Now, of course, there still were the Rusts and the Gensels and stuff, but they were always going to work hard. But it was all the other guys, the Evan Rodriguez's, those guys worked ridiculously hard. And you know what? It's paying off.
Evan Rodriguez, another guy who played for Coach Quinn in Boston. Yep. So for sure.
Yep.
All right, Russ, we'll speak to you next week. Hopefully I'll be back from Vegas in time to speak to you. Russ Cohen here each and every week with the NHL Report. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, you know what time it's going to be. It's time for Joe Jackson and AJ's Sunday paper. So keep it tuned right here. If you're a company looking to increase your visibility, to make sure your promotional materials get packaged in the most attractive way and distributed most efficiently, then you need to call in PIMS. Whether you're launching a new product and need to assemble customized influencer packages or looking for a more efficient way to manage your inventory and collateral, PIMS involvement helps maximize the impact of your brand's performance. For more than 30 years, PIMS has been helping companies get their message out to the right people, offering personalized distribution services and full-scale inventory management solutions. PIMS works its magic on 3 continents, backed by 350,000 square feet of warehouse space. If you're looking for experience, PIMS is it. They've shipped more than 13 million packages and elevated more than 8,000 brands. Want to know more? Check them out on the web, PIMSinc.com. That's PIMSINC.com, and read testimonials from their satisfied clients. That's PIMS, the first name in marketing support.
Decolator Cohen and DePrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
You can read it in the Sunday papers. Read it in the Sunday papers.
And you know what that music is. It's all time for AJ's Sunday Papers. And this is going to be a complete surprise to me because normally AJ sends me what he's got. So what do you got, AJ?
Yeah, I should have sent you this one. Well, this one actually is out of the South Florida Sun-Sentinel down here where I am. You bought the pay-per-view fighting matches, right?
What's that?
You bought fight pay-per-view?
Yes.
Well, there was one here in South Florida last night. It was a pay-per-view event that I bet you probably would not have bought if you had a chance. It was $12.99, so it's a bargain. I did not buy it. It was the South Florida Pillow Fighting Championship. There apparently is now a move to actually do pillow fighting in the ring, specially designed pillows. There was a $5,000 first prize for the men and the women. And, you know, it's quite an event. So it's up and coming for people who want to see boxing but don't want to see people get knocked out and get and walk out of the ring bleeding.
Is it sponsored by the My Pillow guy, or is he in the ring?
No, if we're sponsored by the My Pillow guy, I would not be talking about it. We won't get to politics on the show.
All right. Oh, wow. All right. Very interesting. It is strange, but every week your stories are pretty strange. It's time now for the NBA report with Chaim Talbot. How you doing, Chaim?
Doing well, guys. How you doing?
Pretty good. So you know what? I guess where I want to start, maybe AJ wants to go someplace different afterwards, is, you know, how is Andrew Wiggins, who's probably the third or fourth best player on his team, an all-star, ahead of Draymond Green? I just don't get it. Where did this come from?
So this is a story that actually involves a little bit of a deeper dive. And this is a story that sounds like one of the weird news stories. It involves a K-pop star named Bam Bam. Wish I was making that up. So the fan voting in virtually every all-star game is flawed. The Golden State Warriors had an agreement with a K-pop star earlier this year. He wanted to expand his American brand. They wanted, obviously, more global outreach. So he performed in San Francisco by the Warriors Arena, and he then they kind of traded tweets. He then went ahead and tweeted that, you know, basically vote for Andrew Wiggins to be an all-star. And this was on a day when every retweet counts as double votes. So Thailand and several of the Asian countries' votes for Andrew Wiggins went through the roof. Andrew Wiggins is an all-star. Let's start there. He's having a phenomenal season. He's one of the better two-way guard/forwards in the league. He should be an all-star. He should not be a starter. There are a couple of other factors that kind of helped him secure this honor. injuries, first and foremost, Paul George not being there, Kawhi Leonard not being there, make things a lot easier for him. Anthony Davis, obviously. And I guess kind of the last factor involved here, it's a matter of the way it's broken down. 2 guard spots and 3 forwards. Luka Doncic would have outvoted him. He would have gotten more fan votes. It just no guard spots available left, and Andrew Wiggins was playing as a forward. So the confluence of events kind of allowed for this to happen. It probably shouldn't have. That being said, he's a great story. He should be an all-star in some capacity, even if not necessarily a starter. But yeah, there's kind of a wink and all right, this happened, and the NBA is going to have to figure out the fan voting again as they move forward, something that's constantly being tinkered with.
Fan voting has been flawed, no matter what sport. Adverse an entire, Cincinnati Reds team starting time in the All-Star game back, I think, in the late 30s, early 40s. I want to turn the conversation around a little bit to the trade deadline. And the rumors looking up saying that there may be a deal in which the Nets trade James Harden. What do you make of that?
It's possible. It depends. That those rumors are circulating largely from people who are not sure how James Harden feels. There's some talk that he's kind of disgruntled. He's not happy with his usage. He's not enjoying it the way he used to or the way he expected to. And to be frank, this isn't what he signed up for. He signed up to play with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, and again, a sequence of events. It was now James Harden, go save us all by yourself. And I already did that in Houston. I didn't want to be the lone wolf. The way he's being used is not the way he is used to or the way he necessarily enjoys. And if he was winning and he was playing with Durant and Kyrie Irving, it was a sacrifice he was willing to make. If it's all by himself and he's still kind of in a system that's not highlighting, James Harden, he's not the beard, which he hasn't been since he's been with the Nets, really. Then yeah, there's talk that he's disgruntled. There's talk that he's unhappy. Whether or not he's tradable, what you can get back, who's open to taking a James Harden, and I have no idea. I don't know what you would get for James Harden now, or what's available, or who's looking to make a move for James Harden, because James Harden is a guy who is not the easiest guy to play with. I mean, he's got great court vision. He can share the ball. He showed that early in his Nets tenure, but that's when you put him with 2 other superstars of his own caliber. Other people have kind of shrank, and their games have shrank in James Harden's presence. If he's happy, if injuries settle, if things change with Kyrie Irving's vaccination status or his ability to play, who knows? But there are so many kind of weird factors surrounding the Brooklyn Nets. I don't know what to make of it, to be perfectly frank.
It's something that will bear watching over the next couple of weeks with the Nets. For the last couple of years, we thought they were going to be champions, and that's yet to remain to be seen. We're going to wait, and AJ will hang on the line, and we're going to talk. But in case you are tuning in and you're watching us either on Facebook Live or on YouTube Live, there are other ways you can listen to our show. And first and primarily, we consider ourselves a radio program, and you can listen to us over the 365sportscast.com network. Just go there and press play live, or you can download the 365 Sportscast apps on your iPhone or your Android and take us with you on the go, in the car, wherever you're driving around. You can listen to us there. Or if you want to listen to on your smart speaker where you don't have to be tied to a computer, just enable the 365 Sportscast app on your smart speaker and say play 365 Sports, and this way you'll be able to hear us there as well. It's time now for the Capco NFL Report with Jay Retcher. Even though it is winter, and it certainly is here in the East, spring will be here. Trust me, it's going to be here. Groundhog's Day actually is this week as well. So spring will be here before we know it. It's time to get your windows and doors ready to let that fresh air in and the bugs out with the Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes standard with a lifetime warranty and the patented speed reducer, so it won't snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door in the sleek, low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky screen door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for a free estimate. That's 631-440-1100, or visit them on the web at clearviewlongisland.com. All right, before we talk about Tom Brady, because I know you're going to want to talk about that, Jay, let's talk about the game we just watched. On the way here, I watched the first quarter, at home before I left for the studio, and I'm saying, all right, this is unbelievable what Pat Mahomes is doing. I think it was 7 straight possessions where he scored, unstoppable. I thought this was going to be a rout. We got here, we started watching, in the background, and we suddenly saw the momentum shift. And this kid Burrows, kid doesn't lose playoff games. He's, calm and collected. There was one of the plays that you thought was going to be a Eli Manning type throw where he scrambled and evaded two tackles and got a first down. What did you make of that game? And more importantly, I think the game was decided where, I think the Chiefs felt invincible. I think with 9 seconds left at the 1 yard line, they took those 2 shots and didn't go for a field goal. And right now, if they had gone for that field goal, they're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And you look at a guy like Joe Burrow, star-making performance. Yeah, he's already a superstar, but first number 1 overall pick to make the conference championship game in his first 2 years, and now the first to make the Super Bowl as well. It was a good team effort. Listen, you got to give it to the Bengals, man. The defense really shutting down that Chiefs offense in the second half, only giving up 3 points, and that 3 points came out at the end. You're right. I feel like it was kind of a weird game plan. I felt like the Chiefs let their foot off the pedal a little bit. When you do that, these are darn good teams. And Joe Burrow, again, a star-making performance from him. And it's going to be all Joe Burrow over the media over the next couple weeks before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think the key to the game, you hit on it, Jay, was not so much Burrow's performance, and that was good and worth talking about. But what they did at halftime in terms of the adjustments the defense made. You look at that second half, not just where they did the stop on the 1 yard line when Kansas City could have gone for a field goal and did not. But what they did the entire second half, they intercepted Mahomes, and they did it without, but they sacked him like once. But they figured out how to cover his receivers and make him scramble around and not find anybody. And that to me was the key to the whole game. That they turned it around by turning it up on defense.
Yeah, it's a great point. And be able to rush with just 4 down linemen was huge. It wasn't a crazy blitz fest. They sat back. They kind of gave Holmes some time, and they were double covering Kelsey, especially in the red zone. So a really, really smart job by Cincinnati going, hey, he's going to scramble around. Let's just try to keep him in front of us, keep all the big-time playmakers in front of us. And if we do that, we'll be in good shape. And you could tell it really frustrated Patrick Mahomes, and that was a huge reason why Cincinnati came away with the victory.
It also makes the Giants hire look a lot better. People were saying, why didn't they wait for Bieniemy? You know what? I don't know how many people are going to be knocking on his door because there was not a lot of adjustments made in that second half at all. All right, looking at this second game, I was wrong in this first game, so probably I'm going to be wrong. I picked San Francisco. What are your thoughts looking at this second game?
It's funny. It's funny, Mark, you say that. I'm like, yeah, Rams are going to win, right? And then after that game, you walk away and you're like, man, it's like San Francisco's probably going to win now, right? You guys know, you've seen it in New York. It's so tough to beat a team 3 times in one season. But to me, I just feel like the Rams, and watching them in person last week, they just seem like a team that they can beat you in so many different ways. It's almost like a fighter in boxing or MMA. The Rams aren't a team with just one knockout punch. They can beat you in a bunch of different ways, offensively, defensively, special teams. They can run some trick plays. I like the Rams. I think they take it home, and we see a Rams-Bengals Super Bowl.
Wow. I don't know how great that's going to be for ratings. All right, let's get to something you surely want to speak about. Tom Brady. Bottom line, they kind of walked it back. I think they walked it back because they didn't want it to be the story this weekend when football games are going on, as far as saying, no, he's not going to retire. But, he kind of alluded to it during the season as well. Your thoughts, if, FanDuel or the, what's the other one? I forgot. DraftKings put a commercial in between, the first and second quarter over under on if he's retiring. Which way you lean?
Oh, man, it's the more and more information. It's so crazy to be in the spot that I'm in right now. And again, sorry about last week not being able to connect with you guys. I actually ran outside before Brady spoke to try to call you. I had no reception at Raymond James. Ran back in, sat down right when Brady started speaking. And sitting in the press conference last week, guys, I'm thinking to myself, this does not sound like a man that is not coming back next year. Like, he just seems like, all right, I got one more go. I got one more go at this. But then yesterday we're having fun at our Gasparilla, our big parade down here in Tampa, and then the news breaks, and you're getting the Adam Schefters of the world, and then you start thinking, man, where there's smoke, there's fire. But our guys locally have talked directly to the Buccaneers and the front office, and they said that Tom is still undecided. It's going to take some time for him. He's away with his family, so it's going to take time. So it's a wait and see approach.
I think he just wants to do it on his terms.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
It's starting to come out on sources and whatever. It's not the way he wants to control it. So I think they scaled it back. They walked it back just to let him go out his terms, set up his press conference, figure out what he wants to say. I think he's going to retire, and I think that's the word. People jumped the gun and said, I'm going to call Adam Schefter. And that's what happened. I think he's starting to let people know. But I think he just wants to do it on his terms, his announcement.
Okay, guys, we got to wrap because it's time for Brett Topel and BT Talks Everything. We'll see everyone
guys.
next week. Have a great one, everybody.